Aaron Sundman has been described by a fellow worker as inquisitive, insightful, entertaining, and a connector. He learned to code in the mid-80s. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. He learned to code in the mid-80s when buying software meant purchasing a printed magazine that had code written on the page, and then to use it, you had to type it in manually into the computer. He first encountered the concept of blockchain and Bitcoin in 2012, but didn't recognize its potential at the time. It was while working at a global company that Aaron observed the struggles people had operating in multiple countries. Exchange rates fluctuating wildly, transaction fees, time it takes to transfer funds, international laws and customs, and he realized how blockchain technology can reduce many of those obstacles. Today, he seeks to develop a platform where this technology can be made accessible to all, especially artists and musicians who have long been underserved in protecting and monetizing their creations. He says this new technology is changing the way we interact with the world. No longer are we limited to traditional methods of exchanging value or interacting with others. He's a musician who designed, choreographed, and sang with Rich DeVos at company parties. He's a stand-up comic. He even won a crew event with his family at Rockford High School. He has a knack to simplify the most complex technologies for which we will all be thankful. And according to a fellow worker, just might be the most positive, energetic, and engaging person that has ever spoken to us. So here's Aaron.
All right. I'm out of here. No, I'm kidding. Well, welcome, everybody. This is exciting. I titled it this because it's NFTs are a brand new thing. Cryptocurrencies have been around for 12 years. But why you should care is kind of more important, I think. And even part of that is, like, I want to hear today while we're talking why you might think it's interesting or questions you might have. So I'll say the rest of the introduction. My name is Aaron Sundman. Yeah, I don't know who it was that wrote that, but that's funny. They know me pretty well. So I left Amway. I worked there for 30 years as the digital strategy and innovation guy, and really was trying to get them to adopt a lot more cryptocurrency, and because there's a lot of things that can make things more efficient by using it. However, that didn't work, and then they did the buyout. So I left Amway a year ago, and they're paying me for a while to leave. So I'm like, heck, why as well leave? I mean, it was a great place to work, and so I really miss the people and seeing people every day. But started a company that is really just called the Digital Art and Currency Group, that's mostly about consulting and writing code to make things easier. So that's why I'm here and why I would love to talk to you. I have done other lectures to GVSU. I mentioned this to Pat earlier about the technology the connection between art and technology, and it was really great to get the interaction. So I'm hoping lots of questions come my way in here, because this is where it's fun, is to do this and have a lot of interaction. So first of all, I'm going to show you something. This may not be the expected first slide that you would expect to have happened here. This is sort of the map. I'm going to talk about Bitcoin a bit, why it was created, what money is, and why it's different than often what we think it is, cryptocurrencies, and then NFTs. But here's the first one. So if Warren Buffett, who's a brilliant guy, was the second richest guy, probably was the richest guy in the world for some amount of time, he thinks Bitcoin is stupid and pointless and a scam. So I'm not saying that everyone thinks this is a great idea. And if you expected this to be the first slide of a cryptocurrency presentation, the problem with this also is that when you're so entrenched in the current financial system and the way it works, anything that disrupts it is going to be problematic for you. So that's the way I perceive what he says, but he's a really smart guy, smarter than me, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. Here's a positive statement, unexpected probably as well. Bitcoin is a tool for freeing humanity from oligarchs and tyrants dressed up as a get-rich-quick scheme. Okay, what he's saying is that what cryptocurrencies do is they live basically globally, because the blockchain exists everywhere. It's not in a particular country. It exists everywhere all at once. And all you have to have is a 12-word phrase to be able to carry money from anywhere in the world to anywhere else. You can carry $1 billion in your head. It's crazy ideas like this that are going to change how we perceive value transfer going forward. So I'll show you some of that, but I wanted to say this is sort of the first ones are some negative statements. So I love this one. I still don't get Bitcoin. So this guy says, imagine if you keep your car idling 24 hours a day to get solved Sudoku puzzles that you can trade for heroin. So that's the way a lot of people perceive it, right? It is really just weird, complicated thing. You spend a lot of energy because you want to buy drugs. That's the way that a lot of people perceive it. And if you go out and just read what's in the papers, that's what it says. I mean, it doesn't say it just like this, because this is kind of satire. But you see, so I'll show you why the car running 24 hours a day is like miners. They're out working on solving problems and it spends a lot of energy. So that's why they're kind of referencing that. And there were different places you could buy drugs online with cryptocurrencies. That's pretty much all gone now because you get cracked down on stuff like that. But that's what this is sort of saying. So I'm trying to go in the way positive and the way negative in the beginning here of cryptocurrencies so you can kind of get an idea. This is before and after Bitcoin mining. So what they're saying here is that a lot of what used to happen in places around the world where they had to flare gas, because there was no other way to convert that gas that was in the system. You had to flare it off, which created a lot of CO2. What they do now is they take Bitcoin miners, which spend a lot of energy, remember we talked about that a moment ago, to solve problems. Well, what they did is they put Bitcoin miners there, and they don't have to flare that gas anymore. Instead, they can make money for the company, and they can no longer waste the energy and create a bunch of CO2. So there's a lot of different things that are happening. So I don't expect any of this to be like super clear all at once, but this is some of the stuff I want to talk about. Yeah?
How do you define a Bitcoin miner? What is a Bitcoin miner?
So what a Bitcoin miner is, it's this really, really complicated thing. But I'll say it this way. It spends a lot of energy to protect the network by just using a lot of electricity, basically. So some people say it's solving a complex problem. It's really not solving a complex problem. Sudokus or puzzles. What it's really doing is guessing like 1 trillion times a second to guess what the next puzzle piece is going to be. And once it gets it, they get 6.5 Bitcoin, which is worth like $70,000, $80,000. So it's just a bunch of computers running really, really fast to solve a problem. Spends a lot of energy. So I don't go into like the hash mechanism because that's all, if there's any specific questions, I'm sort of willing to do it, because you can do it by hand, but it takes about 1 trillion per second, these guys do. As a human, we can do about 1 every 36 hours. So 1 hash every 36 hours, or you can do 1 trillion a second by getting a machine to do it. So anyway, yeah, Bitcoin miner is one of those things that is just spending a lot of energy. And they're in the news a lot because they spend a lot of energy. And so people are scared of it. The reality is, for the most part, you can put them anywhere and use energy that wasn't going to be able to be used for anything else. So that's why I was showing this slide. So here we go. Here's other people like Krugman does not like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is evil. So there's a lot of other. Here's another one. So the Human Rights Foundation, who's more concerned about free speech around the world, he's saying this: it's an escape hatch from tyranny, because no longer are you completely reliant on the money that's given out by your government. Now, we have a fine government, and they protect our money for the most part, except the printing of money in the past couple of years. Other than that, we have the world's reserve currency. We're the strongest economy. Other places around the world need it far more than we do. So that's why a lot of times if someone in here says, Aaron, but why would I need Bitcoin? I have Venmo. That's true. You do have Venmo. You have Zelle. We have cash that works. We have ATMs that work. That's only 15% of the population in the world have the kind of connection to a financial system that works. So we are not really the point of Bitcoin. We can use it because we can invest in it, we can think about it, we can use it to back up all this other stuff. The rest of the world that is currently held in a totalitarian states, they actually need it far more than we do. So that's what he's working on, is trying to figure out how to help. So this is the Human Rights Foundation. So I'm kind of showed the negatives and the positives. Questions, any so far? Yes?
What's Venmo?
Venmo, Venmo is what, like, my kids used it, and I never got onto it. But right now, I have two daughters in Boston and one son at South Bend. And if they ask me any question like, hey, can you send me some money? I open up Venmo app, and I click 3 buttons, and they get $50.
So you can send money with
You can
Venmo.
send money to,
Like the Zella.
just like Zelle. The other thing that's happened with Venmo is they also have a credit card now. So if he wants to go get anything, I can send him $50, and within 10 seconds, he can go buy something from the convenience store with a credit card that's a Venmo credit card. Yeah, it's really a nice system, and I'm not arguing against those systems. They're very smooth and quick to use.
How do you put money into Bitcoin?
That's a great question. There's actually ATMs, like little machines. If you go into a lot of gas stations, there's one on Wealthy. There's one on 28th Street at the corner of 131. And basically what you do is you take your $20 bill, stick it in the machine, and it'll put money on your phone. So that's one way. That's the least efficient way because they charge like 10%. So it's a horrible deal on that. But that is possible. That's one way. There's also like Cash App. If you use Cash App at all, it's very much like Venmo. It's another app. And you can, like I've done this before, you click 2 buttons, boop, boop, and you buy Bitcoin. Because it's really as simple as that, and it keeps it inside your Cash App that keep Bitcoin in there. So that's another way to do it. They have apps that now make it that simple. It's literally 2 button clicks once you're in the app to buy Bitcoin.
If you have a phone that works that way.
If you have the app, if you have it connected to your bank account, yes, thank you. Yeah, this takes more than 2 clicks to get all the way done, yes.
This is a really stupid question.
Oh, I love stupid questions.
Is Bitcoin tangible? When you say you can buy Bitcoin, do you get something, or is
Well,
it
you have, I love questions. So this right here is a card that has a Bitcoin private key on it. With the private key. So this little QR code actually is the private key to unlock $2 worth of Bitcoin. So I'm going to give that to you right there. So right there, there's $2 worth of Bitcoin. So the idea is it can be physical, right? It's not actually physical, right? It's running on blockchains around the world. There's 5,000 or so computers that are constantly keeping track and validating all transactions. I run one of them in my house. It's just a computer. It's just sitting there, connected to the network, and it receives all transactions and processes them.
So if I buy it, does it go into my bank account? Where does it go? Can you repeat the question?
Oh, yeah, thank you. She just asked, so one question was, how do you buy it? Which I think that was pretty clear. And the other one was, where does it go? What is it physical? What ends up happening is there's a wallet. This is one of those weird things where a lot of words mean multiple things. And wallet we generally think of as this right here. This is where we keep it, a physical thing that holds my cards and my cash. A wallet from a cryptocurrency perspective is usually a digital application that stores your private key. It's just like it literally is a 64-character string of words that will unlock all of the money that you've purchased. So it really doesn't exist anywhere. It's just a string of characters. That's your private key. And that wallet just protects it by not letting other hackers get at it, or if you lose it, there's ways you can just keep the 12 words I talked about. So it's really just locked up in cryptography. So it really doesn't exist anywhere, but also it exists everywhere because it's running on a computer system that runs worldwide, and it's just locked up by your private key. So your private key, for example, let me just bring up an example of this. I'm going to leave the presentation because I like this because I'd rather answer real questions than show you a presentation that you don't care about, right? So
We like to see
Oh, I will, and I'll get to it, but I don't want it to become, I don't want it to become where, like, I show you a bunch of stuff that you don't care about. I'd really rather answer the questions and making sure that what you get is the answer to the questions. So I'm just going to show you this real quick. So this right here is an app that I use, and it's got $0 in it. But this right here is a wallet. It's just an application running. This is running on an iPad, but it works the same app on a phone. In fact, let me show you this. This is interesting. So remember that $2 I gave her? So I've got another one right here. In fact, I need to give you one because you asked a question also. I'm trying to encourage people to ask questions. So there's that. But I want to show you what happens. Like, here's this. So this is that. It's just got a QR code on it, and this is the private key to $2 worth of Bitcoin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, tap in the upper right-hand corner. There's a little QR code symbol right there. And I'm going to tap that, and I'm going to scan this code. Now watch what happens. Basically, all it's doing is coming over here. Oh, where am I? Oh, there it is. And scanning that code. And the code is going to come back and say, oh, hey, there's $2.04 on here. Do you want to take it? Right? So the private key that's held in this application on my iPhone is now it read the QR code and it said, hey, here's the money, there's $2 worth sitting in this little account, do you want to take it? And I'm just going to watch this. I'm going to do this. Bam. Oops, slide. So now I have $2.04 in my wallet. So it's really just, it doesn't go into your bank account. It just is held in cryptography on these blockchains around the world. And your wallet has the private key to unlock it. That's all it is. The wallet you can download for free from any app store. In fact, I'm going to ask you to do it later if you want to. But here's a trick. Here's a trick on you. This is $2 right here. But if you don't take it in 2 weeks, I get it back. So if you don't care about it, don't worry. I'm not going to lose money, and your opportunity to take it lasts 2 weeks. If you want to give it to your kids to do it, you want to take it, or a friend who really is interested in cryptocurrency. So, but I really rather you experience it yourself, because otherwise it's all theory. It's all useless knowledge. So experiencing yourself is really what is going to be helpful.
So if I put it in my wallet, then what do I do with it after that?
So the great part about it is a lot of things. One is just hold it. Does everyone know what's going to happen with cryptography and cryptocurrencies? Well, no one really knows. It's an experiment still. It's only created by Satoshi Nakamoto 12 years ago. I'll go over that and more later. But so it's a brand new thing. And many people think that because the efficiency of the system is going to change how we do money transfer going forward. Now, the app might look very similar to what we're used to. You know, it doesn't look like a big cryptocurrency thing. It just works like it. But behind the scenes, underneath it, is all the settlement transactions are done on Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or Ethereum or something else. So what you do with it besides that, you can actually buy stuff on Amazon using this. You can actually buy, you can move your stuff into Cash App and convert it into US dollars. You can sell it right in the Cash App. There's a lot of different ways to use it, to either convert it back into US dollars or to spend it. I won't go through them all right now, but I'll show you this later. You had a question there.
I did, and she just asked it. You answered it.
Oh, okay. Well, let me give you because so here's the trick on that. You know, the thing is with cryptocurrencies, like there is a lot of it's really kind of new, right? So a lot of places don't accept it yet. There's quite a few businesses downtown Grand Rapids that did in the beginning, like 5 years ago, but they stopped because no one was coming in and asking to use it. So they went, well, why am I going to keep doing that, right? So part of it is how do we make it easier for people? How do we make it easier for companies to use it and make it easier to use? Yes, sir.
Quick question. Did you drop $2 in there and did it gain 2%
Yeah.
for a certain amount of time?
That's a great question right here.
It was just a couple days.
Yeah, it was 2 days.
Sounds like a really smart investment.
Okay, well, yeah, so he asked, if this is $2 just 2 days ago and it went up 2% in 2 days, yes, it goes up a lot and it goes down a lot. So yeah, I mean, I have had it before where I've given money. Like, I did a class where I did 4 different weeks, 4 weeks. And the second day I gave out, no, the first day I gave out like $5 to each person so that we could practice going back and forth. The third week, it was up to $7. So it gained, 70% in 2 weeks. And then the week after it was back down to like 522. So it was, it's fun to see these during events because you can actually watch it. The other part that if you take the $2 and put it in your wallet, and you open it up and look at it once in a while, then you're going to feel like, okay, I get it. I see things are happening. You see it up, you see it down, you go, oh, a little more investment intellectually than just hearing about it in the news. Yes.
You say you buy the Bitcoin, so how does the money come out of what you, I don't even know how to ask this question.
Well, absolutely. There's a huge number of ways to actually do it now. You can, like I said, on Cash App is one of the easiest. What I'll do is I'll go to Walgreens, and Walgreens has the thing where you can put money onto, a vanilla gift card, right? You say, here's $20, put it onto this gift card, and they can put it on the gift card. Similarly, you can give them $20, and they'll convert it to Bitcoin and go into your Liberty X app. So there's lots of different ways. Absolutely not. I am one of many. Maybe they're the best and certainly the closest.
More questions get more money?
Yeah. More. They got to be good questions. No. Okay, so let me get through a few more. Okay, this is what I wanted to get to because this is what I'm already doing, handing out free crypto. So I'm handing out. This is actually Bitcoin Cash. Okay, so Bitcoin was created in 2010. There was the only one that existed. When I first got in, only Bitcoin existed. And then there's now thousands of cryptocurrencies. Like, they're being created every day, right? So what happens is, because it's all permissionless and there's no head, I mentioned Satoshi Nakamoto. I'm going to show a picture of, well, I'll show a statue of what he looks like. But no one knows who he is or who she is or who they are. It was just created. And so because there's no leader, there's no one to make decisions, things will split in half because 2 different parties will say, I think we should grow faster and have cheaper fees. And so they split off Bitcoin Cash from Bitcoin back in 2017. And so now there's all these different things because they want to try and make it smooth and easy to use. And other people want to use it as purely digital gold. So what's digital? What's gold useful for? Oh, he's got a question. Yeah. Well, that absolutely is. Yeah. Thank you. How does the IRS treat this? Or do they not because it's global? I actually had a slide, but I took it out because I didn't want to go too much into this. But it's a great question and absolutely should know. Right now, the IRS treats it as property. So it's just property, which means that capital gains applies to it, which means that it's the same as if you bought a painting and sold a painting. The hard part about it is, well, how do you account for $2 on the 21st of September, and you got it and you sold it 3 years later? Do you remember what percentage of your holding was that $2, and do you keep track of every transaction? It's a very, very complex thing with the way it is with the IRS right now. It's as you can imagine, technology moves a lot faster than regulation. Every single day there's new things happening. Even last week there was something out from the White House about mining. Remember we were talking about mining a little bit? They actually put out a thing about, okay, if this is using so much energy, is it going to kill the universe? Is it going to kill our planet? Is it going to save our planet? Because there's so many different things, like we talked about. This is a brand new thing. So the regulation is constantly moving. And so the question, the further question they had about the global thing, every country treats it differently. So it's actually legal tender in El Salvador right now. So it is in fact, it doesn't actually work this way on the ground, but every company is required to accept Bitcoin as payment in El Salvador. They're not actually doing it, just so you know. It's, saying the regulations and requiring it actually on the ground is not the same. But so every place treats it differently. In fact, it's illegal in China to mine Bitcoin. China was the largest Bitcoiner by a factor of 4 3 years ago until they did. So they were 80% of all mining was done in China. Now 0% is done in mined in China. So every place treats it differently from a legality perspective as well as a tax perspective. So there's another question back there. Oh yeah.
I'm having confusion with mining. What, like, when you say mining, you mean just activate?
Yeah, I'll say it this way. I'm sorry. That's a great question.
I'm picking up people thinking.
Well, in fact, they actually named it that because when Satoshi Nakamoto, which is, again, an anonymous person or persons, he actually, or she, decided to talk about it that way because they wanted to compare it to gold. Because gold is actually literally mined out of ground. And it takes a heck of a lot of work, and it takes a lot of money and a lot of energy to get gold out of the ground. So what he was trying to say is that it's going to be the same thing. When you mine Bitcoin or any other mineable currencies, it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of energy, and it's going to take a lot of effort, and it's going to cost a lot of money. And what happens over time is that in the beginning, you're going to find lots of it because it's really easy. It's at the top. The gold is at the top, right? And so as years later, it gets harder and harder because now you got to dig further and dig further. So same thing that happens with Bitcoin. As you're going along, it gets harder and harder to mine. As the more people come along, the problems get more difficult to solve. So that's why it's really just a comparison to mining in a literal sense. So I think you can think of it that way, and it'd be a fair assessment. Yeah.
Is one Bitcoin then one blockchain?
So one Bitcoin is really like, there's 21 million Bitcoin that will ever exist. So this is the perfect scarcity thing. And what happens is the way it's distributed, to do it in a fair way, in the beginning, when they first started, every block that the miner solves, when they would solve a problem, they would get 50 Bitcoins delivered to their wallet. It would just go boop, pop right in their wallet, and it would be sitting there. So for the first 4 years, every block would be, you get 50 Bitcoins. And then they cut it in half, supply shock down to 25 Bitcoins 4 years later. So it really is distributed that way, and it's sort of an odd mechanism to find a way, but what we're trying to do is find some fair way to hand them out. Who gets the money first is very, very important. Just like when the government prints money, the banks get it first, generally. They get the best opportunity to use it to take the most advantage with it. Whoever gets the money first generally gets the best opportunity to take advantage of the money. So the miners get it, and then it gets passed on and sold to other people. So they want to find some fair way to do it that would go directly to the individuals. And that's how they do it with mining.
So the miners in the beginning were solving problems?
Yes.
So they're solving problems, and then they got their Bitcoin, but whoever this Japanese named person took their information or their ideas. So they sold their ideas as miners for Bitcoin?
No. The interesting thing about it is basically everybody on the network is anonymous. Not truly anonymous, just to be technically correct, they're pseudonymous, meaning there's a number, but we don't know who owns it. Like when you create an account, it'll have your sort of bank account number, but you didn't sign up for it. You didn't put your name in. You didn't put your social security number. You just get assigned from the math world, gets assigned to this thing. So everything is pseudonymous. So whenever they're mining, if they solve the problem, they get the Bitcoin and they get it into an anonymous account. So you don't have to give away any information or idea or knowledge or anything. You just, as you're mining, you get the Bitcoin from there. Yes?
We had an interesting article last night regarding mining, talking about being in China and coming in here in Appalachia, and they're putting these mines in there. Did you read that?
I didn't see that one. Oh, he got 4 back here. I only brought 3. Anyways, split the. I'll get bring one.
But it almost looks like it's storage units. Like
Yeah.
their buildings and this is where they house them.
Yeah.
The people in Appalachia are complaining like crazy about the noise.
Right.
When you're in the airport.
Yeah. The question that she mentioned was about the fact that all these miners moved from China, because remember, 2 years ago, they were banned from mining in China. They had 80% of all mining in the world. Now they have zero. Where'd they go? Because it didn't go down. Mining didn't go down. A lot of people went to Appalachia. A lot of them went to Iceland. A lot of them went to Texas, because there's a lot of oil in the ground and shale that's down there. And if you can't build transmission lines yet to use that electricity, you got to do something with it, which you can with Bitcoin, because you just take these cargo containers, like everything you see on the back of a truck might be full of 1,000 Bitcoin miners, just full of them, just these little Bitcoin miners, and they sit into a truck and they set it down and they plug into electricity that was being wasted or burned off, and then they just run these miners with it. They do make a lot of noise. It's kind of crazy sometimes. Yeah, and there are complaints, and I think that it's not clear, what the regulation should be about that. One, it's really good for the environment in many ways to be able to have, be able to expend energy that used to be wasted and make money for the company, rather than having them go out of business. Now they can actually monetize that until the electricity lines are all set up. And or if you're at there's a lot of things like dams, where they have a lot of energy and they're too far away to use that energy, so they'll put miners up there so they can keep making money off of that and use the energy until they can get the lines set up to be able to transfer it to their hometowns or the local towns.
I feel like I'm in Epcot.
It is weird. No, she said she felt like she's at Epcot. I mean, there's a lot of things here that are like, they're so futuristic. And I think, let me mention this, and this goes back to the why you should care piece, is that it is complicated. It sounds stupid in some ways because it's like virtual, right? You're talking about like this virtual thing. They're not physical. But because right now we trust the financial system that's out right now is really just a bunch of people that are fallible. They make bad decisions with money. And taking those decisions away from fallible humans who are thinking about the next election, and taking it out of their hands and put it into something that's math, that cannot be corrupted, that there's no central party to choke. That's the idea behind it. And the reason that is important is, as we go along, we're going to find that, and one thing I should have said from the beginning, this is not financial advice. I'm going to say that there is plenty of time for Bitcoin to lose money, like we talked about. It's going to go up one day, and it's going to go down 10%. It's going to go 20% some days. I mean, it is a volatile system. However, it is far more efficient to settle transactions on this globally than any other thing. I mean, every other system right now, try to send even $5,000 via the SWIFT network to any country. I mean, it is. I talked to our treasury department at Amway, one of the guys who was a Bitcoiner with me at Amway. He's like, okay, we deal with these issues every day. We're trying to send money back and forth between different things. Money gets lost. I mean, isn't it weird? You'll have $4 million that just gets lost in this, and you're trying to track it down. You're making calls to all these banks. You would think that these things would actually work, right? Millions of dollars being transferred. They actually are really complicated, and everyone wants to take 5-6% of every transaction, and then it gets lost for 5 days, and they're trying to, all you have is the string of numbers that the bank gave you. So anyway, so the idea is longer term, all the stuff will move to something that's more secure, that's faster. Which one will take it? Which cryptocurrencies will exist long? I don't know, and I don't think anybody really knows. We all have our favorite concepts and what we think is most important, just like the guy who said to be able to have a tool to get rid of tyranny in the world. What he's saying also is that the Human Rights Foundation is like, we've got to find a way to allow people who are not given the financial freedom like we are to be able to transact with the world and raise their standard of living. They have to have a way of doing it, and right now the financial systems are completely against them. Everybody is against them. I mean, it's strange. Anyway, so, yes?
One question, so if we're trying to simplify this worldwide.
Yeah.
And every country treats Bitcoin differently. How is that different than what's happening right now? I mean, or are we looking long-term for that?
Yeah, I think we're looking more long-term. I think there's something that happened recently with Russia attacking Ukraine and Russia being taken off of the SWIFT network. Right? When have we taken one of the largest economies off the SWIFT network? It's never happened. So what's happening right now is going to start to say, okay, are we at risk of losing the world's reserve currency now that China and Russia are starting to collude and starting to buy in rubles? Before, you had to buy oil in the US dollars. That was a requirement back from Bretton Woods, New Hampshire Agreement for the world after 1945. So what's happening now is we're starting to see a breakdown of this like financial order in the world. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just saying that there's weird things that are happening that just started in the past year and a half. And so it's still going to take some time, but what we'd like to see is things stay nice and smooth and have mechanisms that transfer back and forth that works, that countries can work together and believe in each other. Our whole society is the fact that we can walk down the street and feel safe, for the most part, is all based on the fact that we trust each other. I mean, we have a community of trust. I mean, every person, I don't know, there's just a huge bunch of things. So hopefully what we ended up is with a financial system where we can trust each other by not having to use a third party in between every transaction, which is what I'll get to, but instead using a blind system that doesn't care who you are. All they will do is efficiently get the money back and forth between two parties. Then you no longer have to trust that this person in the middle is going to do things correctly or properly and treat you fairly. That's what we're trying to get to. And that's why longer term, it might not be for 10 years. I think we talked about how long is it before the entire financial system is based on something no longer has a third party that can screw people in the middle. And that's what we're working toward. So here's an app that I use. This is so you can scan it or don't scan it, but right now we'll talk more about it later in terms of if you want to take the money that's on the card and bring it into your own wallet, have something like this. This is called the Bitcoin.com wallet, which is a free wallet from a company that just wants to make it easy to use cryptocurrencies. Yes?
Well, kind of back at the beginning.
Yeah.
The little trust you have, so how do you work that?
I'm going to give one to you right now. So how did I get this, or how do you get this? Okay, so I made these because I wanted to make something that was easy to use and to show that this is kind of a bearer instrument. What's another bearer instrument? A dollar bill. Dollar bill, right, exactly. Something that is like, it is of itself physical thing that I can trade right now for. So essentially, this little physical thing here is this virtual currency odd thing that you can't touch and turned into a little piece of paper that I can hand to you. So I made these because I wanted it to be easy. I went online, and there's a little tool called gifts.bitcoin.com, and I send, $20 to this, and it gives me 10 little cards that are $2 a piece, and then I print them and I hand it to you.
And how is that different than just getting a gift card and giving it to someone, here's my gift card,
No, absolutely. That's a great question. In fact, that's a really good business opportunity if you thought about this. I have started building this, and I haven't done it yet. She said, what's different than a gift card? Why didn't you just get a gift card to give to me? So there's an interesting side to that, because this is a really big topic, actually, right there, is this idea of, if I gave you a gift card, let's say I gave it to you for Starbucks for $10. What if you didn't use it? Who gets the money? Nope. The state of Michigan wrote a law 12 years ago that said Starbucks can't take it, because if they take it, they'll make it harder for them to use it because they want the incentive to keep the money. The system doesn't know who I am, so it won't come back to me right now, right? The $2 on the $10 on the, so it just goes off into the state. Actually, the state gets to keep it. It's cheating. Who should get that money? From your perspective, I don't know if there's a should here, but who should get the money if you didn't use it after 4 years? Who should get that money back? Right. But how does the system know who bought it and give it back to me and where to give it? There is no way. So this is why. This right here is the idea that I can give it to you, and if you don't use it, I get it back in 2 weeks. So why do, I mean, there is the business opportunity that I'm talking about here is this idea of you creating a bunch of, a mechanism to where you hand, a company gives out gift cards or something, and rather than the money being lost to eternity or go back to the government if they don't use it, it goes back to the company 2 years later or something. Because right now there is nothing that does that. Right now it's just lost and goes to the state. It makes sense. The law makes sense because you don't want Starbucks to make it harder to use the card so they keep the money. That's a bad idea as well. Yes?
I didn't say cheating, I said the word is a cheating.
Oh, a cheating. Yes, sorry.
I worked for Grand Valley.
You know the actual terms on that. All right, so I'm going to go on here. So this is what I did before. But if you want to scan something, even what's on your card right there, download the wallet, click that little thing in there at the top, and then scan it. And here's another code. So here is, if you scan with your code right now, you get the free money. If anyone's online and they want free money, they can actually scan this code. So I'm going to be giving out not only physically, but to people that are elsewhere if they want to scan it. It won't tell me if they got it or not. But if someone, hey, what's his name? Alex, what's the guy with the headphones on? Cody? If somebody takes the money and they comment on it, let me know, okay? I have like 5 or more coming up of just different things because I'd like to experience, I want people to, even that are not here, to experience getting the cryptocurrency and using it because it's just theory if you don't get a chance to use it. So other thing, you can take a picture of it and steal it later because that's the private key to some funds. Okay, so here's what's important about it. This is why Bitcoin is going to be, and I'm not saying Bitcoin in general. Often when I say Bitcoin, I mean all cryptocurrencies. I think there are people that will hate me for conflating Bitcoin to cryptocurrencies. There are very, very strong opinions on this. But the permissionless innovation, the ability to be able to create something in a financial network without getting permission to do so. Right now, if you want to create a new tool in the bank, what do you have to do in the banking system? I don't think there's an answer because no one's really created. I mean, there's been default swaps. Credit default swaps is the most recent technical innovation.
I worked with Fifth Third Bank and we created virtual credit cards.
Right. That's a good one.
That was a big deal.
Right. How hard was that?
Well, their systems are difficult to work with.
Right. I like that. You just kind of covered off by saying they're difficult to. Often there's government regulations, there's technical systems. You got to make sure that the PCI compliance is there, and all the other crazy things that happen. Anyway, it's difficult to create in the physical world, in the banking world right now. With this, anybody that can code anything at all, it doesn't matter what country you live in, as long as you follow the protocol, you can now create new tools in the financial network. Which is why we have so many cool apps on our iPhone. If Apple was the only one that was allowed to create them, how many apps would exist? Well, you'd have a few hundred really nice ones. Right now, because they gave anybody the ability to create iPhone apps or Android apps, we have about 75 million really crappy ones. But we also have a couple million really good ones, right? So people are allowed to come up with new ideas and create it and run it on our phone that can scan codes, that can do this, that can play piano, that can mix 8-track audio into a cool thing that I can upload to YouTube in 15 seconds. I mean, all that stuff has happened because you didn't have to ask for permission to be able to create it. So that's why I say permissionless innovation is what this brings to the table. The second is the ability to have global instant reach. We don't have that with anything financial right now. Like if somebody in Venezuela is hungry, you can literally send them money they can eat today just by clicking the button and, in their unique code and send them money. And they will have it within seconds and be able to spend and buy stuff to eat today. So this has never happened. I know it sounds crazy, and because we're so used to Zelle or Venmo or Cash App or ATMs or even Western Union, it feels natural for us that we can just send money everywhere. That's not the case for everywhere in the world, and this brings it to them. There was a question back here. You? Blue glasses? No? Okay. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I just scanned this one. This was $5.
Woo! $5. $5 for the guy in the back. Yeah, so what was your name? Dan, okay, all right, $5. Good. So you scan it, and it actually does have real money sitting right there. And how much is it right now? Is it 5?
I scanned both of them, so I have like $7 and something just there.
Let's see how much it's gone up. I want to kind of see. Because let's see if it goes down below $7 while we're here. Now, I want to ask Dan a question now that he's actually downloaded the app and he scanned it, once he tells me the number here.
$7.13.
Yeah, 13 cents. So, Dan, what all personal information did you type into your phone to create that account?
I didn't type it in.
You didn't type in anything. Did you type your first name, last name,
No, I didn't.
social number?
No, I just had to give it a name.
Does anybody know that you have that $7? Did you have to prove it? Did you have to?
No.
So the interesting thing here, that if you sign up for any other financial app, you have to attach it to your identity. Yes?
Does that person in a refugee camp in Africa need a cell phone, a smartphone to receive your Bitcoin or cryptocurrency?
So, it's a good point, a good question. Does the person in Africa in a refugee camp need a smartphone to do it? To receive it especially, they don't need to, right? Because the address exists whether or not their phone's on or anything else. To create that account, you have to have some electronic equipment, right? So you can do it with a $50 Android phone, which is what, the odd part about it is, a lot of the crypto guys were thinking, hey, you know what, we're going to go to Africa, we're going to solve all their financial problems. Well, what did people do after they handed those $50 phones to be able to transact in Bitcoin? What happened to them? They sold the phone, of course, because it's $50. So we actually don't know what people will do with these things, right? We think we're solving, we're helping. The reality is we're giving them $50. And so yes, there is that. However, there have been experiments like for the, I guess in Jordan, there was a lot of the refugees from, I can't remember where it was from, but the World Food Bank came up with a system where it would actually use their cornea and the retinal scan to identify them individually. So because what would happen is the World Bank would give a whole bunch of money to a bank, which the whole bunch of money was like 4 times their market capitalization of the bank itself. So what would happen in that case? People would steal money. So the incentive is for that to happen. So instead what they did is they put it onto a blockchain to each person, and they would unlock it with a private key generated from their retina. So there are technologies that are coming to allow for the individual to get money directly to the person. They can't spend it anywhere else except to buy food to be able to eat. So that's something that the World Economic Forum came up with to help with the food distribution, because there are issues. So you don't have to have a phone, but for the most part, that's how it would work for us, for most people. Okay, so perfect scarcity. So global and instant perfect scarcity. These are the 3 big points the ability to have something that only has 21 million, that'll never go beyond that. How many US dollars exist? Trillions. How many were created in the past 2 years? It went up by 40%, right? So the reality, we printed $6 trillion in the past. So I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. I think there was a lot of people that really needed money, and we were in a pandemic, stuff like that. But I'd also like to say, when that happens, it devalues everybody's currency. Whether or not it's deflating it's like having a tire, and it's just deflating constantly because the inflation is taking the money away from you, right? So if you have something with perfect scarcity, that can't happen. If you buy 1 Bitcoin, you own 1 of 21 billion Bitcoin that will ever exist. Now, is that good or bad? Well, depends on if it goes up or goes down. But the interesting thing about it is, it changes the idea of what the supply and demand curve is, right? If the supply is constant, demand is the only thing that will change the price. because the supply is constant. So I won't go into too much on that, but it sort of changes. Usually or anything that happens, if you're producing something, if you produce more of it, more oil gets pulled from the ground, well, it gets cheaper because their supply is increased, and so it gets cheaper to do it. Well, if the supply can't increase because it's perfect scarcity, it's going to change the whole economics of the whole system. Yes?
Where's the number 21 million coming from?
Satoshi's a crazy guy, or gal, we don't know. She just decided to do 21 million. I think it was the math of, if I take some number and I drop every 4 years, it goes down to, like, in the year 2140, it stops emitting Bitcoin, and that's the number I came up with. So I don't think it's a good answer. You think it came from blackjack or something, but it didn't. But here's one of the things that I wanted to do is talk about scams and errors, because the other thing I want to make sure is that you don't fall for, if you do decide to invest any money whatsoever, I don't want you to fall for the most common scams and the most common errors that people make. Because these, even very, very smart crypto people, fall for these problems. Okay, so let me just kind of go through them just real quick. One is leaving your stuff on exchange. So if I buy something from Coinbase, which is another place you can buy Bitcoin, Cash App you can buy Bitcoin, if I leave it there, it acts just like the financial system we use right now. Who owns the money in your bank account? You would think you own it. You don't own it. The bank owns it, and you might have access to it. Most likely you do. Let's just say it that way. But if they don't open the doors, it's not your money. It doesn't really matter. What do they have to do to not give you your money back? Nothing, right? They just don't open the doors, right? So do you own that money, right? So the idea here is, if you leave something on an exchange, crypto changes things because it allows you to hold it yourself. You can hold it in that wallet we talked about, right? You hold it yourself. So you take it off of the exchange, you hold it onto a wallet. Now you have access to it forever. It doesn't really matter unless the internet dies. So I mentioned that, not your keys, not your coins. That's the one thing I'll say. Here's how you do it. You solve it by downloading a wallet and just moving it from your account to this is a computer app called Exodus. Here's a mobile phone app called Exodus, and it's very simple to use. You just get the address and you send it from your exchange to your wallet. So I think not your keys, not your coins is very important. And it's a big change because we're so used to leaving our money in our 401k or our bank account or our stocks. Someone else hold it for us, right? Because that's how we think. That's how, and it's hard to break out of that because we just don't, otherwise we're sort of equating it to, well, do you mean just put my dollars on my mattresses? Is that what you're talking about? I'm not talking about that. With crypto, you actually have the ability to hold it, and you actually can make money with it because some of these will give you an APR just even for holding it yourself. So 17%, one of them does, the one Cosmos. So either put it onto a wallet like that, or there's a hardware wallet. If you have more than like a few $100s, buy something like this, which is a little hardware wallet, looks like a little thumb drive, and you plug it in, and it generates the keys so that it's not connected to the internet. Internet is crazy world. Uber was just hacked, that was like 2 weeks ago. So there's a lot of places, so if you have a few $1,000s, buy a little $80 crypto wallet and put it on there, and then you don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to explain it all too much right now, but just so you know, that kind of thing is possible, and it's really inexpensive, and then you're not exposed to a lot of the hacking.
What happens if you lose that?
So if you lose that, right, or if your phone breaks, right, or if your phone breaks, either one of those things, right? So you, Dan downloaded a wallet, and he's got $7. He wants to protect the heck out of that $7, don't you? He's like, yeah, that 713 is what really set me apart. No, there's something called a seed phrase. So when you, this is one of the craziest concepts. Remember we talked about transferring $1 billion between countries with just your mind. Ooh, that sounds like, what were we, Ripley's Believe It or Not? Who is saying something? Sounds like something. No, so what happens is, behind the scenes, your wallet there, Dan, created a 12-word seed phrase. And all you have to do is write down that seed phrase. It's just this, on a piece of paper, and put it in your safe. So now, just like what happens with that Ledger wallet, if you keep those 12 words, you can always recreate it. You can recreate that by buying another one or even a different one. Type in those 12 words, and all the money will magically appear from the blockchain. So that 12 words right there is actually how you can protect yourself from your phone dying, from lose your phone or your ledger. You just have the 12 words written down, and there's enough entropy and randomization in those 12 words to be able to regenerate all of these private keys. Yes?
So your wallet created that?
Yes, yes. In fact, Dan's right here. So here at the bottom, so there's this little thing right here. So tap that, and then back up in security, and it says right here. So there's a couple of different things. One is this particular app will back up your seed phrase automatically to iCloud. Right, so it'll keep it encrypted on iCloud, so even if you lost your phone, the seed phrase is backed up already. If you want to manually do it, there's a manual backup, and I'm not going to look when you, so you just press that, and it'll give you 12 words. Yeah, just, love it, that's exactly it. Just really help us out here. Would you say those 12 words? That'd be just great. She's got the right idea here, right? Is the idea that once somebody knows those 12 words, we can all get it. But what's super interesting about that too is you don't have to use it right now. You can wait till he has $10,000, right? You can use it at any point in time. So that's why I'm saying this next part, which is leaking your seed phrase, is really bad. If you decide to back up because you don't want you to lose your ledger wallet, and if you back them up with the 12 words, just keep it in your safe. And don't show anybody, and don't ever type it in anywhere. I mean, this is, remember, of the 3 things I'm talking about, 3 or 4 like major things, just keep your seed phrase. It's really easy because it really is a physical piece of something that is 12 words. It seems like something that can't be worth something. It absolutely is. Ron.
Oh, well, when I can't get into my Amazon account, it'll ask, forgot your password. Put in
Oh.
password.
Okay, let me sit down for this one here.
So, what happens when somebody else does that and says, okay, I'll get a new password, and now you don't have a password and can't change it either.
Here's the great trick about this. If you lose that money, it's gone for forever. No one can pull it back. There's no backup. There's no can you send me my password? Nobody has it. So if you lose, like if you didn't say that seed phrase and you lost that ledger wallet, it's lost for all of time. It's like losing your wallet and no one ever being able to find it, right? I just dropped this right here. You would think, well, someone 20 minutes later is going to walk up and find it, right? No, this is like literally gone for forever. It's locked away in cryptography. So this is where people get a little bit scared about holding it themselves because we're not used to that. We're used to be able to click a button and they send me a little code and I type in the code, voila, everything's good. That's not how it works with crypto. You are responsible for your money. It's gone for forever. It's not like someone else will get it. It's sort of like a gift to everybody else in the world who owns it because now you've like deprinted money or unprinted money. I don't know what the word is. That's not a thing. Yes?
What happens if you die?
Yeah, if is the great question. I think that was funny because I was in that meeting when Jay Van Andel said that. What if you die? And the guy's like, when I die, dude, of course I'm going to die. Which I was like, oh yeah, I guess that is a hard thing to realize, but it's absolutely true. So the question is, what happens if you die? I'm going to use your word. There are not good solutions right now for that. I'll say what I think people should be aware of is make sure your offspring or whoever is going to know about it. They don't have to know everything. They have to know that it exists and that you have stuff in your safe. But you can see the problem already, right? Well, one is, what's 12 words valued? If go back 45 minutes ago, if you saw 12 words written down, what would it be valued to you? Maybe if it's a good haiku, maybe it'd be Other than that, it's just worthless, right? So if someone finds 12 words in your safe, that's nothing, right? It's trash, 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 right? So they have to know, they have to be aware of it, and they also have to trust whoever deals with it. The first person that opened that safe. So if it's your lawyer and you don't necessarily trust your lawyer, I'm not saying lawyers are bad. I'm sure most of them are fine people, but you can't, if they just have that 12 words, the money's gone if you don't trust them. So it is not an absolutely worked out situation. It's brand new, crypto's 12 years old. I think there's a lot of people that are just really not sure how to deal with that. There are solutions, but they're nothing that's accepted yet. I'll say it this way. There are other custodial solutions, like Fidelity will hold your Bitcoin for you. Coinbase will hold your Bitcoin for you. There are, but that goes against the ethos that I mentioned a moment ago about not your keys, not your coins. Now it's back to being a regular account, which can be hacked. And crypto, as we talked about, is gone if it's stolen. You can't get it back. There's no one you can cry to the government. You can't call the North Korean government. You can't. It'll be gone for forever, right? So the question is, if it's gone for forever. If someone hacks it, it's gone for forever, which makes it a very clear honeypot for hackers. If there's a $400 million sitting there and all I have to figure out is your private key, woo, I can just crack in and whoop in. But if the bigger the honeypot is, the more chances people will try for it. So anyway, there are solutions. They're custodial. They go against my ethos of not your keys, not your coins, but it's worth considering. Sorry. Long answer for that good question, if you die.
Any prediction as to when this will become everyday? Is everyday is Zelle or is everyday
Yeah.
online banking?
Well, I'll say it this way. It won't be every day until the user interface, the user experience is easy.
Do you have a prediction?
It'll be, I'd say it'll be like 10 years before it really is that easy. The positive to this, like learning about it now when we still talk about 12-word seed phrases, this means you're still early on it. Like it's when the technology is still being worked out. When do you want to get involved in new technology? After it's been like easy? For the most part, people want to get involved when they are seeing it, when it becomes still a little bit clunky. Like when email first came out, I don't know if you watched those videos, you had to sign the thing, you get the phone, the modem, and you type in your AOL password, and it takes about 20 minutes. Now you go, Siri, send an email to Jim, tell him I'm going to be there at 4. Woo, right? That's how easy it is now. That's how easy it's going to be later, but it'll take some time. Because it's going to take a lot of trust. We talked about this earlier about the banking. I forgot who was it saying, you're going to use the online bank system? We got a bank that's right down the road. Why don't you do that? Right? Well, in the beginning, that's the way we think of things. We already have a bank. Why do I need to do that, right? Here's one of the things. It takes, this is what I mentioned. I don't know, where is she that was talking about the banking? Yay! All right. It's like once it becomes 10 times easier to do something rather than the old thing, people will move there. But it's got to be 10 times easier. It can't be a little bit easier, a little bit more secure. It's got to be so much easier. So now, instead of getting into your car, well, first checking your watch to make sure it's between 9 and 5. Oh, I'm going to check my watch. And I'm going to get in my car. I'm going to drive over to the bank, and I'm going to pull out my ID. Instead, I go, bloop, 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 $5, $20 here, pay my bank account there. Of course we're going to go that way. It'll take some time. It takes a long time for trust to happen. But it'll take some time. So I don't mean to go off on crazy topics, but... So here, never give your seed phrase to anyone. So that's what I was talking about. Here's the last one, crypto giveaways. This does not seem like it should exist. But what happens is if you go on YouTube any time of the day, there's going to be some video of Elon Musk talking. And he's talking about this new technology and about Bitcoin because they bought like $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, Tesla did. But over on the side, you see over this, it says, hey, you know what? We're going to give you free money. All you have to do is send 1 Bitcoin to this address, and we will send you 2 Bitcoin. How many are you going to get back if you send them 1 Bitcoin? None. You're going to get none. But they'll have this. This is a really trustworthy guy. And these people, you don't know them, but they're really trustworthy too. So they're talking. And so this happens every day. You go out to YouTube at any point in time, you're going to find Tim Cook talking about this really cool technology. And on the side, it's going to say, send this money. You will get free money back. You're never going to get free money. Never. 0 times. I want to make sure you know this. Never do this. People fall for it all the time. All of the time. So here's another one. This is Vitalik Buterin, who's the guy who created one of the cryptocurrencies. Really, really intelligent Russian 17-year-old. Now he's like 20. And he's just hyper intelligent, fantastic. They got him up talking. And people send money to these addresses going, boy, Vitalik's going to send me 3 Bitcoins if I just send him that. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get free money. Okay, here's another trustworthy guy. Barack Obama, he wants to make sure that you get your money. So if you just send him the money to this account, but only 30 minutes. So make sure you send your Bitcoin. Dan, get your $7 ready. You could turn into $14.28. Okay, so those are the 3 biggest ones that I wanted to talk about. Here's the other one. Your friends' inside knowledge. I'm sorry. They don't know what they're talking about. Usually when someone says, oh, I've got the best crypto idea, I just heard about it, and you only have to buy in with $5,000, and it's going to turn, guess what it is? It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a scam. Every time. If someone says, hey, I'm saying right now, I don't think you should buy all the time. You should really understand the technology first before you buy anything. And I'm not telling you what to buy. In fact, I'm not going to mention that at all. But I want you to know about it. If someone says, hey, there's really cool technology out there, maybe buy it or don't buy it. But if someone's saying that I got a great idea, it's not going to happen. So here's BitConnect example. This is a guy going, at a big BitConnect rally, buy BitConnect, you're going to love it. It's the greatest thing ever. Right? So here's the next thing, the Department of Justice. They seized $56 million from them because it was a scam. Right? So here's another one. Igna Rujatova. She said she was creating the Bitcoin killer, the one that was finally going to kill Bitcoin.
She's on the FBI's most wanted list.
She is on the FBI's most wanted list. This guy knows his stuff. $5.8 billion she stole from people by creating a fake cryptocurrency, and now she's gone. There's actually the crypto queen. There's a whole podcast about her. Her brother was taken in. They lived in Bulgaria. He was taken in under custody, but she's disappeared. With $5.8 billion, can you change your face? Yeah, you can change. And it's in crypto, so you can do whatever the hell you want with it. So anyway, interesting stuff there. This is Satoshi Nakamoto. This is actually a statue of him because people believe, there's a lot of people that believe, okay, I'm going to go a little bit crazy here, so I apologize if I sound a little crazy. There's a really smart person, a smart group of people that wanted to solve a problem, remove money from the state, separate church and state, separate money and state. Countries and people are fallible. They don't make great decisions. Why allow that to something that screws the people, right? So that's the idea. That's one group, that's one idea of what Satoshi Nakamoto is. Way down here, you go, well, maybe it's aliens giving us cool technology to solve problems, right? And then you go all the way down to this side, which is maybe it was the Antichrist, and he was creating the one world government by creating Bitcoin. And so, there's a large contingent, and he wasn't that good of a programmer, actually. So when they went back and looked at his original code, he's not that good at programming. So he made a really cool thing, but it's been all changed since because there was a lot of mistakes that he made and wasn't very efficient. Anyway, this is Satoshi Nakamoto. Any questions so far on Satoshi Nakamoto? A sheet?
This is a real question. It goes back to that woman. She used a private blockchain, and I don't understand how blockchain relates to cryptocurrency and why that was important. That's what confused me.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, so he was asking, so how did Ruja Ignatova collect all this money and with this private blockchain behind it? And how does it relate between the blockchain and the money and all this other stuff? Is that a pretty close approximation? Yeah, no problem. So the interesting thing about the OneCoin thing in Ruja Ignatova was that she didn't actually even have a blockchain. It was all a fake blockchain behind the scenes. It was a joke, and we're just trying to collect money from people and giving a little bit of money back out so they don't try and get their money back. Big Ponzi scheme. So there was no blockchain. In fact, there was one guy, as the governments were starting to crack down on him, they went and found this guy and said, hey, will you create us a blockchain? And the guy's like, I am not going to create you a blockchain and try and make you ethical. I'm not going to do it, right? So what a blockchain is basically this system where there's running all these computers, and every computer is keeping track of every single transaction, right? That's how blockchain sort of works. It spreads out the work of validating transactions to thousands of people around the world and held in databases around the world. So if you as a hacker try to go and change something, you can change one. You can hack into one computer, but you'd have to hack 10,000 simultaneously. So it allows for a protection against any action, and every action becomes immutable, which is unchangeable. Meaning, if you go back and something happened, you make this transaction, like for example, if I stole his $7, it's gone. We've already moved on. Every 10 minutes, there's a new block that makes that $7 transaction more and more secure. You wait an hour, that's never going to change. You might be able to, if you put like all the world's governments put together money and try to put a bunch of miners to try and backtrack to get that $7, they might be able to do it 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later. That's with all the governments working together. After like 5 blocks, it doesn't even matter. Not even all the governments working together could get your $7 back for you. I'm really sorry. Anyway, so that's what the blockchain is, that thing that actually makes all these immutable transactions exist for forever and unchangeable. If you pretend like this exists and pretend like there's a real blockchain, you can do whatever you want. Right? There's no real blockchain, so it doesn't really matter. You can be a scammer, you can do whatever you want. So, then that's what a lot of people do. So anyway, does that answer the question?
Yeah, it's like having an accounting ledger that's not just local, it's
Right.
global.
They call it like triple ledger accounting, right? Double ledger accounting was created by the Egyptians. I don't know when it was created, but basically debits and credits, so that you can make sure that when someone spends money, you know where it went, right? So you can account for everything, and it balances at the end. Triple ledger accounting is this idea of the debit and credit idea, but also it's held around the world on an immutable blockchain, so that not only is it the two of you, your ledger that's kept up, but everybody in the entire world knows. Knows what? Doesn't know your name. They know the transaction happened. The blockchain is completely public. I can query every transaction that's ever been done. I don't know who's doing it, but I can see when $10 million is transferred. I can see when it goes, there's even transactions right now that are worth billions and billions of dollars, and they transact for 23 cents. Who's sending it? I don't know. But it's all public. So the idea is that third ledger, which allows for everything to be trusted because it's available to everybody and you can't back it up. You can't change it. Craziness, huh?
Is there a real guy?
There was a real person. Or
Okay, I remember he was just a representation of a group that worked on this? Or?
yeah, I would say it's really a representation of a group that worked on this. But there was a group or person or real person that, because they answered a lot of questions on forums, because a lot of the technical people were on cypherpunk forums for a while, answering questions about cryptography and going back and forth on all nerdy kind of crap. But the reality was there was a real person answering those questions, and he did go by Satoshi Nakamoto. He disappeared once one of the head maintainers of the code decided to meet with the FBI. He said, you know what, I don't think we really need law enforcement. At this point, we're so young, we're so tiny, anyone, while this project is very new, I don't want to draw a bunch of attention to it. Because he, WikiLeaks founder was trying to get, hey, we could take donations in Bitcoin. And he's like, okay, Satoshi Nakamoto, the real group or person or whatever, wrote back saying, hey, it's better to not focus on that, because right now, if we get so much attention while we're really, really small, they'll just come take us out. We want this project to grow before we get that much sort of negative attention. Now it's worth $1 trillion and used by 100 million people around the world, so it doesn't have the same issue. But it is a real person, and that's how they know it. Oh, there's other things, but did I answer that question? Come through? Anyway, Ryan's looking at me like, I don't know, dude. Okay, so the Bitcoin white paper, this is when it first was written. He wrote a white paper saying, hey, I've got this new idea. And so back in August 18, 2008, he put it out on a cryptocurrency forum and said, hey, here's my new idea. And everyone's like, what? That sounds crazy. And then other people read it and went, what? This could actually work. So then he coded it and launched it on January 9th, 2009. He actually wrote the whole thing and running it on his own system. So this is the raw block data of the Genesis block. And notice what it says right here. The chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks. So he wrote that into the blockchain because he wanted to say this is about making sure that we don't screw people with their money. If you can stop it so that there's perfect scarcity on money, then we don't have to worry about governments keep printing money and bailing out other people and keep printing money and keeping population poor. So this is one of the ways he's making, so that, I mean, I've never talked to Satoshi. I might have. There's 25% of the people believe that Adam Back is Satoshi, who's the guy who created a lot of other cryptocurrency things, and I met him at a conference. So maybe I talked to Satoshi, I don't know. But I mean, no one really got into these deep discussions with him about why he did it. But he put this in there because he believed that was important enough of a message to people as to why Bitcoin was created. But I got more. Hey, if anybody online wants it, there's another $2. So any questions right now while we're on Satoshi or anything else? Yes, Loretta.
What if you don't have any way to get one of those QR codes?
What if you don't have any way to get them?
My phone won't handle QR codes.
Oh, so
I have an old phone.
there's an interesting thing is the newer, when is your phone from? What year?
I have an Android Motorola that's probably around 10 or 15 years old.
Okay, well the interesting is that'll still take a photo. So the idea is this right here is just a QR code of a private key. That QR code is just text. And so if you actually copy that text and bring it into any wallet, they will import that and take the money from it. So there's a lot of ways you could do it. Or you could, I mean, one way.
So I got this from you.
Yes.
What text do I copy?
See, that QR code itself is actually renders into text.
Yeah, but how do I get that to do that since I can't get
Well, I would like, here's what I would say. There's a lot of, I would say get a newer phone. There we go. Boom, bam. Solve that problem right there. You know, but here's the trick right here. So this phone is an iPhone 11. What just came out? 14. They will give me $900 for this, for a $1,000 phone. So it's going to cost me $100 to upgrade. And this is 3 years old. So maybe you can get that deal. There's your $800. Okay, moving on. But why is it worth anything at all? Why is Bitcoin worth anything, right? This is a big question that will people pay for it is clearly the question. So I'm going to go through just this quick evolution of money thing. Bartering is super inefficient. I have this cow on a trade for your beets, right? But only you have to, if you want something else, you got to find somebody else. So that's all super inefficient. So they started to move into other things like physical objects, beads, stones, all kinds of things. Again, that's more efficient because there's a medium of exchange in between, and I could just hold 7 beads, and I'm going to get this cow later with collecting with my other 327, or whatever $7 Dan has. Would you give me that? So anyway, those right there, right? So that we move. But the problem is, someone else would just come in and find more beads and pretend like they were the original money. So now all of a sudden, it's not very hard money, meaning you could always just find more beads, and now the whole monetary system breaks down, right? So that's why physical objects were bad. So they started moving into paper money and into gold and silver. And this is a funny bit. I didn't realize this. Why does your quarter have ridges on the edge? He knows. Because it's weird. Well, have you not wondered why they have little ridges on the dimes and the quarters? What happened in the beginning is they were silver. There were silver coins, and so people would shave off little bits of silver because so what they had to do is they put ridges so you could tell if it was done. Because if they did it right, you couldn't tell, right? It was just, they'd go all the way around. So they'd shave off a little bit of silver, and here you go, give me your chicken, right? Those kind of things. So now why does the nickel not have it? I don't know. I don't know the answer to the question. That's a crazy question. Why are you asking me that question? So anyway, so the thing was with, and what they did was if they didn't, what governments would do was they go, you know what? why do we have to have it all silver? Why don't we just put 50% silver in, right? It saves us money as the government. People don't know nothing, right? So that's what was happening. You started getting to inflation, but just by deflating the value of the actual physical object, right? So then we move into gold, we move into credit cards. So moving back into 1950 and electronic money, this is what 4G, right? Zelle, Venmo, Cash App is, right? So here's an interesting piece that I'll say. Those are the only two, all of these, that require your identity. Through all of human history, money was just stuff we handed. We didn't have to know who we were. Privacy is actually normal. It's just in the past 50 years that all of a sudden it's collecting our identity about everything, right? So notice right here, all of a sudden it goes back to cryptocurrencies, which doesn't require. So we're just so used to everything being tied to our identity that we've just accepted it as normal. Privacy is normal. All of humanity, up until 50 years ago, allowed for us to be able to have, like, just interact with people and just be natural about it and not worry about, if you think about it, like everything you, besides cash, everything you do is tied to your identity. Credit card, it doesn't give them the money, right? You don't swipe it and they get money in the bank, in their cash register. It asks your bank, if they have money, and then it goes to here, and it goes to like 6 steps before they get it, and they don't actually get it for like till the end of the month, right, when everything settles. So the reality is all of these things are way different. This is what we just accept as normal, but that's not actually normal for humanity. Humanity is used to having stuff we trade back and forth. Cryptocurrencies gets us back to that. So anyway, I'm going to go switch over here and say, these it goes back to being bearer instruments. You hold it, you can transact freely. In the United States, it doesn't matter that much. But if you're female in Pakistan, if you are somewhere where you cannot get a bank account, you are not included in the financial network. You can't have a business. You are not allowed to. So it's not just about what we have here. It's about the rest of the millions of people or billions of people in the world that are locked out of a financial system, and this gives them access to that, to become real people, to support their families. So that's the other, there's another piece to it that is less clear when you live here in this financial rich world that we live in. Not that each one of us is, but we all have financial privilege because we can always open up an app and send money and get money out of an ATM. That's not true around the world. So here's the characteristics. I'm just going to go through. I don't think this is all that important, but I'll say fiat is right here, regular government money. Gold is fantastic for durability. Like every bit of gold that's ever been dug out of the ground is still up and usable. Like you can't burn it away. You can't lose it like I did my wallet. I mean, you can lose the physical gold, but someone's going to find it. Whereas my wallet, if it's cryptocurrency, you're never going to find it, right? Gold is real and it stays. It is still the hardest money in the world. And Bitcoin is coming up close to it because the issuance of Bitcoin is getting closer and closer to what we were talking about, the mining. When they were creating it, they wanted to make it like gold so that it would be distributed and dug up less and less over time. So eventually, we're going to get to the point where Bitcoin is harder than gold. Right now, it is not still. Bitcoin is still the hardest money, meaning people create less of it every year than exists by a factor of 80, 90, 98%. Only 2% gets dug out of the ground each year compared to the whole. So that's why gold is really important. But Bitcoin is just dramatically more transferable, portable, divisible. Like here's an example. If someone says, hey, I'm going to pay you in gold, and they give you a little gold thing, right? Do you know if it's gold? Well, it says Krugerrand on it. I mean, it's $50, I'd probably do it. But if it was $10,000, I don't know how to assay a gold coin. And does anybody know how to? I mean, there are tricks where you actually put on a little weight, and if it's pure gold, it weighs, it tips over at this thing. There's a few tricks, but anyway, Bitcoin is validated instantly by all those 10,000 computers around the world. So in some ways, it's more verifiable. It's certainly more divisible, because here's the other one. Here, I'm going to pay you in gold. All right, that's kind of It is silly, but because it's not very divisible. But so it's not necessarily better money than gold. It's different. It's just an interesting way to look at it to say, is cryptocurrency something that can rival what digital gold would be? And easy to transfer. Keep it in your mind. Try to keep gold in your mind. Maybe it's a tooth, right? Anyway, that's an interesting. So here's more money. If someone gets it, I hope they tell me about it online, because I want the people online to have access to that too. Yes, sir. Oh, we'll say again. Oh no! So what you have to do is download that Bitcoin app. This is just the private key to do it. Okay, so Dan did this earlier. So if you find that Bitcoin.com app, you need to download it. There's a little button in the upper right-hand corner with the little QR code. Use that. This is actually a QR code, but it's the only ones that the iPhone and Android from the camera will read QR codes, but only if they're like URLs. They have to be formatted with HTTPS or HTTP in front of it. She's got it. Woo!
Along with my $5.
Yeah, high five. Yes. Yes.
Somebody gave my granddaughter 6 years ago Bitcoin amount, said to save it. Now, how do you think it's going to improve over
6 years? It's gone up probably 20x.
20 times?
20 times.
So should she sell it?
I would say she shouldn't sell it. That's my own opinion, right?
Just keep it?
I would just keep it. But 6 years ago, what year is today? This is 2020. What year is it? What the hell? What decade am I in? Hey, why are you going to break my little world here? So 2016. Now, interesting about Bitcoin in 2016. All the forks of Bitcoin happened after. So she doesn't only have Bitcoin. She also has Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV. There's a bunch of other forks of Bitcoin that happen. So not only does she have Bitcoin, she's got 5 other cryptocurrencies under that one private key. So because all of these things are changing and people are disagreeing, they're forking and taking off with their own project. A lot of them forked the blockchain itself from Bitcoin, so she probably has more than that now. I don't know how much did she say how much she had? Actually, don't ever tell how much you have.
Oh, I didn't ever ask, but it was probably $100 or something.
Yeah, so it's probably worth $2,000, $3,000 or something from 2016. So I'm going to mention other ones. I mean, we talked about forking of coins. Some of these crypto, like this one was forked from Bitcoin, that was forked from Bitcoin. Dogecoin started as a joke by Jackson Palmer because he thought, this Bitcoin thing is so stupid. I'm just going to create a fake one. He's a programmer, so he grabs the Bitcoin code, puts a dog on it, and says, what a joke. Now it's worth, $60 billion. So it's interesting to see what happens. Some of these memes are stronger. The ideas behind them are stronger than the currency itself because people like to see funny dogs and stuff, so they want to buy this. I don't know. Hey, he's got it.
No, I was just wondering if you want this one failed broadcast.
That's what I had too.
So what happens is, if we're going to see if the network's strong enough. I'd give it a couple of seconds when it. The nice thing about it, if it didn't move from your wallet, you'd try it 10 minutes later or something like that.
I had the same thing, I did it 3 times.
Okay, so a lot. Oh, here's an interesting thing. Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think about this. Okay, we're in a university on Wi-Fi. Cryptocurrencies are still considered scary. So a lot of times they will block access to certain domains. This one is called Bitcoin.com. Bitcoin.com is the most obvious cryptocurrency domain. So I believe they blocked it. So if you turn off Wi-Fi and did it, it'll probably work.
Well, the first time I did it with this, and it worked fine, and I could claim it. The second time, I came up, but it wouldn't let me claim it. It kept saying to connect, and yet I connected to the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I would disconnect from Wi-Fi, one. That's probably the biggest thing. A lot of times what happens is, if you're connected, your phone's connected to the network, the Wi-Fi network, it might very well go off it if it loses connection for a second and use the cell data. So it's not a perfect system. So one thing that happened is the money's still on there. If you get that message, the money's still on there. If you want to give it to me, then give it back. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's go back here. So yeah, try that again. You know, the first person that claims it, it's gone, right? So if it pops up and it says 0, that means someone else took it. Yeah, so you do have to have access to the internet. If there's connection issues, this is what will come up. It's not. So all right. Well, I'll say this: the internet fairy is not showing up for all of you. So I'm going to show you. Go to CoinMarketCap is a website to go to. That will, if you want to see all the rest of the cryptocurrencies, there's thousands of them out there. If you just want to see, this is also to validate if your friend is saying buy something. You go out here, you look for it. If it's not on there, it's probably not really existing, and it's just a fake thing, like we talked about. Like if your friend was coming back to you, buy OneCoin, you know, the Russia Ignatova one worth $5.8 billion. The reality is it never was out here because no one believed it was real, which it wasn't. And so if you would have checked this, you would see that it's there, that it's not a real one. But I want to mention this too. This is the past 7 days. So everything's red, like across the board. Cryptocurrency is red this week. Other weeks, it goes up 20%. So guaranteed, it's going to go up and down, for sure. So this is why I would say, not financial advice. It might go down 20% the next day. So what are tokens? I'm just going to kind of go through what are tokens because there's an important piece to this. The cryptocurrencies are the things that have actual blockchains out there, right? People running the blockchain. The token sort of rides on top. It's basically what we'd say like this. It's like a transaction, but it's got some text in it and stuff that makes it become another thing, basically a token. So the way to think of it is you don't have to create your whole cryptocurrency, new cryptocurrency, to create your own token. You can actually create, I know this sounds crazy, the GVSU Grand Forum token, which I created yesterday. It's worth absolutely nothing, but I made it. So you can create your own tokens and call them whatever you want. So how much did it cost me to make this token? 1/10 of a cent. Because I had to pay for the transaction, which on Bitcoin is about 1/10 of a cent. So interesting to see, you can create all these things, and they all are unique things. And like what I expect eventually is even in grade school classrooms, Suzy Coin, the kids will be able to create their own little token that they give to their friends, and they can sell something to their friends. I mean, all of this stuff is real, and it is all working right now. And like this one right here, Tether. Tether is the biggest stable coin, which means it's a token that represents the dollar. So cryptocurrencies go up and down, but stable coins are just digital dollars. So you can actually, if you have $10 worth, it'll be worth $10 tomorrow. It'll be worth $10 the next day. It'll, 2 weeks from now. So there are new things on there to say, we want to have this idea of cryptocurrency, but I don't want it to be this wildly fluctuating thing. I want something that works well. I can transfer it. So I can send $10 to someone in Venezuela if they really wanted US dollars rather than Bitcoin. That's how you can do it. The tokens make that possible. So this is kind of a newer concept. So I'm already introducing something with cryptocurrency. Now I'm introducing something on top of that called tokens. But there's all these new things you can create. In fact, let me just show you the next page of this, which is my little GVSU Grand Forum token. It has a ticker on it. It's where I have 21 million. I don't know why I created 21 million either. Just Satoshi decided to. So all these things, basically, this is what I talked about. Cryptocurrencies have their own blockchains. Tokens are assets that run on an existing blockchain. Oh, run an existing. Well, that's supposed to say on an existing blockchain. So here's an interesting thing about it. What else can tokens be? So this is another part where what's different and why should you care about this? Because cryptocurrencies are really important for long-term of all the financial system will eventually move to this because the other financial system is completely controlled by people and we need to break out of that. So this is all going to happen. It'll just take 10 years, 15 years, hard to know. This stuff is happening right now. Those tokens I talked about can actually be money, like we talked about the Tether, but also could be concert tickets. The idea is that if I create 1,000 tokens for 1,000 seats in my auditorium, I can actually send you a token directly to your wallet. And now It's not on my system. You can sell that item as an individual item. You own it. It's not on the system anymore. Like if you have tickets on Ticketmaster, they're just on a database somewhere, held on the database. Now you can't sell that unless you contact Ticketmaster and have them move it to the other person. Now, if you have a physical ticket, you can sell it. This acts much more like a physical ticket, but it's still digital. So it takes something that's digital and becomes physical because you own it on your wallet. So these are new things that are coming, and this is going to change how ownership happens longer term. And I'll explain that further. But voting, community governance, I can provably show that I voted. You can easily count it because it's on the blockchain. There's different ways that can be hacked. So don't get me wrong, no one's going to be moving to blockchain voting yet. We don't trust our voting system all the time every way, so let's wait for that. But for smaller things, you could use it. Fine art, there's partial ownership, so you can buy Klimt. Remember that the Kiss from Gustav Klimt? That painting was sold in NFTs, non-fungible tokens, which I'll talk about, inch squares. So they actually sold inches of that painting as an NFT. Now, they didn't rip the painting apart, right? They just did it as NFTs, as tokens. They sold them. So I'll show you a bit more. So there's new ideas about partial ownership of things now in the digital realm. So that's coming. Real estate. Tokens you can interact with. So if I had a token on my phone, I could tap the door. It would validate that I own it and unlock the door. There's things like that that are coming. Right now, we don't need it yet, right? We have RFID. We have a lot of other things, cards and stuff like that. So, but these are things that are like, how do you prove you own something? It makes it super simple. Stocks, they'll be changing, because right now, the funny thing about stocks, just like we talked about the bank, who owns the stocks you own? Yeah, you don't actually own. They're sitting in Fidelity, but they don't actually even sit in Fidelity. They sit in a third party that's held. So right now you don't actually own any of these things. They're in our account, but eventually what will happen is they become tokens, and you own stocks as literal tokens in your wallet. You physically hold them. So these are all coming. Right now this is not regular yet, and we'll talk more about some of that, but I want to mention some. Here's the non-fungible tokens, right? So this is the word. No one ever uses fungible as a word, let alone non-fungible, right? So they're really just unique digital objects. So I'm bringing it up to you because I think most people think the NFTs are a joke, and I wanted to kind of at least talk about it quickly to say NFTs, which is the word for unique digital objects. That's all it really means. And the fun part about non-fungible tokens is, I'm going to come back to that. Is fungible is something like this. Here's a dollar bill. That's completely fungible. If you're going to give someone $5, it doesn't matter which $5 bill you give them. They're all the same. They can spend it just the same. So that means fungible. Non-fungible is like this. When Kanye signed this dollar bill, all of a sudden this becomes non-fungible. It's not the same value as that dollar bill. It might be worth less if you don't like Kanye, but it's not worth the same. That kind of thing is go with non-fungible tokens. But here's what people know of about non-fungible tokens. This is the most popular non-fungible token collection called the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Does this look like worth $1.2 million? I mean, it's nice. Justin Bieber buys this NFT for $1.2 million. So interesting, isn't it? So the question is, what does it value? Well, is it worth what people will pay for it? So this is an interesting one, is to say, look, so we're going to have these tokens and they're worth something. They're not even a physical thing still, but they're just JPEGs. I'm confused. Yeah, most of the world still is, don't worry. It's just a weird thing that we're trying to say. Tokens are very, very valuable long-term in terms of individually be able to create a digital item that's unique and saleable and provable, like instantly. So that's why these things, it's kind of a strange bit. I'm going to go back so that someone can get that money there, though. So any questions on the tokens thing so far? Does anybody have ideas of how to use this concept?
Can I sell my art 1 millimeter?
Yes, 1 millimeter at a time. That's a great idea. That's a great one. You actually can do it, right? So So you can go to OpenSea. In fact, I'm creating an NFT marketplace. The idea is to be able to have anybody upload their art. So to be able to allow people that work with their mind, artists, to be able to actually sell their wares online. A millimeter at a piece, okay, well maybe, but it'd be a fun experiment. I don't think anybody will buy it. No, I would buy at least 12 of them.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of your millimeters, for sure, because I'd be interested in your concept behind it. But yeah, it is possible. In fact, it happens every day. The OpenSea.io is the biggest NFT marketplace, and it's worth $8 billion. The property itself, but they sell hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars every day in NFTs. So it's happening, and you can go out there right now and just create NFTs on there as well. So yes, the answer is yes. I don't know if you'd want to, because it'd take a long time and it would not be worth it. But it would be fun to try. Okay, so the other things you can do, like they're doing NFTs of video game items. I won't go into why they're doing this. It's kind of wild. Basically, NFTs are digital things. So this is the part that I'll get to longer term. Digital things that have the same property as physical items. Up to this point, anything digital existed in this virtual realm. You couldn't touch it or anything. You couldn't sell it because it was all on a database, somebody else's database, or it was just something you could copy a million times. And so really, there was no ownership. When something goes from digital to be able to be owned, now you have this whole concept of being able to sell, be able to destroy, be able to create any kind of concept that you can do. You can sell an NFT, you can trade it, and if you talked about digital items, now why that's important is of the S&P, right? So the Standard & Poor's Index, all the value of the S&P index, 82% of it is non-tangible items. They're already digital items. Like the idea of a brand is not a tangible item, right? The intellectual property is not a tangible. I mean, there are papers that are written down, but all of these things are intangible items. So they're already, most of the value of our stock market is intangible items. So to think that something that's intangible is not worth something, it's already proven to be incorrect. Now the question is, does it transfer over into NFTs and tokens? I really don't know. I feel like it will, because I feel like there's an interesting piece that I'm going to show you right now that shows that it will happen. You have full property rights to NFTs. So even though it's digital, but it is actual property rights. So thinking about how important are property rights for life? Well, we work toward property, and so everything we do is trying to build the house and get food and build things. That is basically how our society is put together. So now we can start to mix this idea of what digital items are into the idea of ownership, which has really not existed up to this point. So, it did exist, but I want to show you this. NFTs are the building blocks for the property rights in the digital age. So property rights going forward are not just going to be this relationship you have with the item. Because I have a cup in my house, is it my cup? Well, no, it could be anybody's cup. It just happens to be in my house. When we think of ownership, the only thing that we sort of have, besides like, do I physically have it, is it in the DMV with that VIN number listed under my name, right? That's kind of how we own things like a car. How do we own a house? We have a deed that sits where? It's registrar, they have it. We probably have a version of it. So there's only like 4 things that we really have ownership of that's more than just the fact that I physically have it in my hand. Like the cars, bank account, 401k, most everything besides those 4 or 5 things is just sort of this relationship we have with things. NFT starts to change that because you can actually provably own something. It's held in your wallet. So that sort of idea coming, I already talked about this, is this right here. So I'm not going to go. Okay, so here's the part that I want to get to. If you own something that's an NFT, you can provably own it. Now this sounds a little crazy. So I apologize about early, but this is kind of fun, is this idea of if I can prove something by just clicking a button, that I have my wallet that has my private key. Remember that little thing that you have your private key in? If I can sign something, like sign a message that proves that I own that, this is how difficult it would be. How difficult is it in a court of law to get past, what do they call it? Burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt, right? How much is reasonable doubt? Is that 80%, 20%, 90%? I don't know. It's some sort of like whatever you feel like, right? What if I could get to this right here? I can prove something, I own something, just by clicking a button that is the same thing as finding a single piece of sand in the entire earth. If I can prove with that certainty that I own something, that's more than reasonable doubt. That is, how many zeros and numbers is that, right? The crazy part about it, it's not one piece of sand in one earth, it's 30 trillion earths. So if I could prove that I own this in 100th of a second by tapping a number and proving that I own this thing far more than any other part of certainty in our entire life. So this isn't 10 times better. This is 30 trillion Earths times better proof that you own something. So this is why I'm saying I think that longer term, we're going to get to a point where we use this as proof of ownership of things. Now, not everything, because I don't want to have to prove that cup is my cup. No one cares that that's my cup. But, you know, it might be ownership of a painting. It might be I bought a piece of art. And like we were talking about earlier, it might be a print. Well, you know, the print, you know, it says 1 of 100, but that doesn't mean they didn't print 100 more. Right? But if I could provably say that was handed directly from the artist to me by showing the token, that I own the token, and it came directly from the artist's wallet, I provably own that, and that's worth something. So there's different things that are coming on that prove it beyond any kind of rational understanding of what proof is. 30 trillion Earths worth. So anyway, I can sign something with my device, with my private key, in 100th of a second, 100 milliseconds, and prove something exists. So this is why I'm saying that the rest of the world will eventually come into the point where we start to see alignment, not only of cryptocurrencies and the base of the financial system start to align with trust minimization. So we don't trust third parties any longer. We interact directly, but it has to be easy. Like Dan was saying, it can't be a cumbersome experience, and now, you know, only the nerds are going to use it, like me. Right? It's got to be something that's easy and fun, and it has pretty little characters that come up and dance. I don't know. I mean, it depends on the person, right? It might be. The other interesting thing about it is you don't even have to be a person any longer. I know this sounds crazy also. You can have machines that actually pay for their own self. You could have a self-driving car that receives money for taxing people around, pays for gas. There's no human even involved. It's just a bunch of algorithms. So there's a lot of interesting things that are coming with that. Some of them aren't pleasant. So I don't expect everyone to just adopt these sort of things. But this is all interesting concepts, and that's why I wanted to bring up. But since I'm at the end of my presentation, I have one more giveaway here, and I want to have a question. Is any more questions right now? And I'm going to stay for lunch too. So if we have any other further questions, did anyone hate the idea of NFTs, of tokens that are digital? How about cryptocurrency? Who's here feels like they're the least in favor of that technology, or have read a lot of stuff that just sounds really negative? Dan.
We live in a country where we have multiple accesses to it. It's not like Crete in the 2000s where they government took all their savings to pay their debt.
Huge thing right there, right? So Crete, like he's happy to live in the United States, where we feel like people aren't going to come in and take our money. In Crete in 2007, they did a haircut, but what they called it was everybody that had over $100,000 of their currency in the bank, it took 75% of it and just gave it to the government to pay their debts. They just said, hey, if you're here, thanks for helping us out. We need a lot of help. We're in debt. And so they just took their money. They just went to the bank account and took the money. Now, that is not what we want to have happen. It's also not what we expect to happen. But they can do it because you don't hold the keys. It's held in the bank, and they can take it. So that's one example. What happened 3 years ago in India? Remember demonetization in India? any currency worth more than $20 was demonetized. This happened 3-4 years ago in India. 86% of their currency said, we're no longer going to accept $20 bills or greater. The idea was black market was getting crazy, and so they wanted to take all these people that had all this cash and had to have them come in. And they said, we'll be willing to trade in X amount of your money. But it wasn't much, a few $100s. So anyway, this happened. So this is not historical things that are like, 200 years ago. These have happened within the past decade where people have had their money taken by the government to pay off debts, and or they demonetized 80% of their currency and just said, so the problem with it is, if you're in the city and you have access to stuff, because they gave them got a couple of days to figure things out, but if you're out in the country and all you have is currency stacked under your wallet, how do you eat? You've lost all of your money. They didn't have bank accounts. And so there's a lot of things like that that are still coming. And there's more examples that I don't want to get into any sort of sad discussion on stuff like that.
We have to stop.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm sorry.
no, thanks for letting me get through it. I wasn't sure, if we'd be able to get through everything. I appreciate just the questions have been fantastic. And so thank you for spending the time. If there's any further questions you have for me, I'm certainly up for talking about it. I've been thinking about this stuff for a decade. Oh, yeah, excellent. Thank you. All right. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway.